Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. Let me know when you guys can hear me and see me. We're going to be finishing up the book of the Midbar, Numbers tonight. I want to remind you guys that we will not be teaching next Shabbat, but next Sabbath, we will be having the Someone Cares Ministry of the House of Israel conference with you can view it online, or if you're in the area there down in Louisiana, with Pastor Jimmy Holly from Love Center International in Houston, Texas. That's May 25th. He's going to be speaking. And then Sunday, May 26th, Pastor Gregory Cummings is going to be speaking, I think, at 1 o'clock at Abiding Blessing Ministries from New Orleans. And then I'm going to, he's going to actually just show one of my teachings that he wants to share with the House of Israel at 6 o'clock. Then I'll be coming on speaking for a little bit right after the teaching in the evening. So that's 7 o'clock our time, 6 o'clock Louisiana time. And that's Someone Cares Ministry, Apostle Curtis Lewis. I'm glad that he's putting this together. It's just about Israelite men with integrity that are preaching the word of God, living this life as Israelites, not just, tearing down folks, cursing folks out, and running in around acting like a fool. But that's what we're going to be doing next weekend, next Sabbath, God willing, and I believe He is. So I don't know about you guys watching the Pope Thursday and their conversation about their new regulation or whatever they're doing about meeting apparitions. I'm not saying the word correct. With supernatural things and aliens and all this kind of stuff, and how they've had an alien ship since 1930s, because they're getting ready to just go ahead and just release everything. It's just been a slow, gradual move until revealing these entities. And the sad thing with the people of God, and it's a lot, that we don't have the common sense to stop. That's why a lot of people ain't gonna make it. I've been saying it for years, and I see it around me every day. Folks that say they believe in the Lord, because people are going around like ain't nothing going on, because you don't see 20 feet giants. You don't have enough spiritual common sense to see the signs of the time that the Nephilim are already here. I don't even get upset anymore, because if all the teaching I've done, everything I've said over the years, friends, family, it's get ready to be lost, because your mind's somewhere else. Your heart is not on God. Your mind's on the things of God. So just a lot of reprobate people, and it ain't nothing nobody can do about it. If folks don't want to help themselves, I don't even have time no more. The Pope is literally coming out saying it. So the U.S. government said it about 6 to 8 months ago that we're dealing with interdimensional beings. And people are so deluded, like this is normal conversation, and don't have any idea of what's going on in the world. I'm sitting back here like, Lord, say, look and see, as it was in the days of Noah. As it was in the days of Noah. They're running around doing whatever they want to do. And that's why when judgment hits and you're taken into judgment, and you lift your eyes in eternity, and it ain't where you think it's going to be, It can't never on that day that when you got to go before the judge, and I got to stand as a witness. Nobody won't have nothing to say. But Lord, you judge righteously before you get sent to a lake of fire. The most evil, demonic organization that put the Israelites in slavery. And these people are in league, have always been in league with demons, have always been in league with, supernatural beings, whatever you want to call them, aliens, demons, whatever, for years, because it's always been about the Messiah, his return, and the Israelite kingdom, and the Lord shutting down all of these, you say, interdimensional beings, and even here on earth, and taking complete rulership over everything once and for all. It's mind-boggling to me. And I mean, when I say it's mind-boggling, it's mind-boggling. Turn with me to Numbers 33, verse 1 through chapter 36 and 13 is this portion, and the final portion of the book of Numbers, Massei, which means journey, Massei. And this is going to close us out, and then we're going to be going into the book of Deuteronomy, and everyone will always have online on record to go back and look through each book, understand what the overviews were because they're online, and read them for yourself. And this is an overview. It is not in great detail, just to give people a map of what they're looking at as they go through Torah. And this portion opens up, Alei Massei v'nai Israel asher yatsu mi eretz Mitzrayim latziv otam b'yad Moshe v'Aaron. These are the departures of the children of Israel by which they went forth out of the land of Egypt by their host under the hands of Moses and Aaron. This opens up with an accounting of the travels of the children of Israel during their 40 years in the wilderness. Now, in all, we find 42 encampments. As a pillar of cloud, the glory cloud moved. You had the rolling stone that went with them along the way. The pillar of fire. And we read, and they departed. Now, one must ask, is the 42 encampments a picture of the 42 months of the tribulation? But every point is or was nothing more than a temporary condition. Even though they would stay in some places longer than others, everywhere they went was a temporary condition, a temporary position to their destination, which is or was the promised land. When we look even at the prophet Elijah, when he went down by the brook, he got ready to pitch his tent and stayed too long. And God had to dry up that brook. We act like we don't know when it's time to get up and go. We have a habit of getting too comfortable. And the glory cloud moves, and you still sitting there and miss God. In chapter 34, the borders of the land of Israel are defined in that chapter. Now, we know that the land has never met the borders as we know today. And that was originally laid out for Abraham. And you could say it's a theory, but it is a fact that when the Europeans got a hold of the Bible and took control of it, that they flipped everything in Africa. Everything in Africa. So what was in South Africa became North Africa. This is a proven fact. This is the wickedness that we're dealing with. These are the things that we should be searching out and finding out about. Get out of the American mind mentality. We got a doggone computer in our hands and our phones, and we don't want to search out where is the promised land, but we claim we want to go. We claim we want to go. We claim we're doing what's needed to be there. We're getting ready to come a time where everything's going to be laid bare. Everything is going to be laid bare. I often think of that prophet Balaam, Balak and Balaam. He could hear from God. God could talk to him. Balaam went to hell. Think about it. You can have dreams, visions, preach, do whatever you want to do. Paul said, but Lord, don't let me be a castaway. This means what is now considered North Africa. I'm talking about locations, cities, are really in South Africa. Why? Because in the colonial mind, the South was bad, dark, meant hell. Everything north is light, white, heaven, and good. And once defined, the land divided. Once the land was defined, defined. It was divided according to the inheritance of the tribes. Now, when we get to chapter 35 as well, you're also going to read something called the city of refuge, the cities of refuge. Now, when Israel settled in the land, the Levitical cities were to be established, 48 in all, and 6 of these cities were cities of refuge. 3 on the eastern side of the Jordan and 3 on the western side of the Jordan. Now, the city of refuge is a place of safety when someone was suspected of manslaughter. They were able to run to it just so they can be able to stand trial, but so they wouldn't get killed by the family. And that gives you a picture of why the father gave Phineas, the covenant of peace, so no one would kill him for what he did. But the suspect, and this is why we have to really read the Bible, and stop thinking of it as we've had this European mindset. These tribes were normal people. They would kill each other. They would fight. They would war. They would go on and run from each other. This was real societal living. But they all had to be together because they were in covenant with Father Yahweh and had to be together. But it was not all peaches and cream. But the suspect, I want to say, would get asylum from the leaders until the proof of guilt or innocence was actually established. And within the city of refuge, they were under the protection of the high priest. So the avenger of it's called the avenger of the blood, couldn't take or kill the suspect, but they had to stay within the city limits. They had to stay within the city limits. Or what happened? The suspect now had to run to that city of refuge. The protection wasn't extended until you got to that city. You on your own long as you're out there. But you got to run to the city. The old folks, you say, I got to make it to that city if it costs my life. Talking about the New Jerusalem. The Talmud tells us, and we're not Talmudic, but there's information in there, tells us that scattered throughout the ancient lands of Israel were signs pointing to the way to the cities. And there was so many signs. And why was there so many? Was it a common occurrence for murder? Why did they need so many signs? The signs were pointing to Torah, the living Torah, the living Torah. And when we look at the sign in Hebrew, we can see this and understand this. The word miklat, M-I-K-L-A-T, the Hebrew word miklat means refuge. But it also means absorption. It also means integration, which means to what do you do when you integrate or absorb? That's right. You become one with something. You become one with someone. Who do we become one with? What tells us what sin is? The Torah, the word of the Lord, the will of the Lord. The Torah makes it clear that the suspect must flee. The city of refuge or run, the word run in Hebrew here. We look at the word run, ratz, R-A-T-Z, ratz, which comes from ratzon, R-A-T-Z-O-N, which means will. Will, W-I-L-L, will. We have to run to the will of God. We have to run to the will of God. Now, the ancient sign said, it didn't just say miklat. It said miklat, miklat. Refuge, refuge. Refuge, refuge. It was pointing to something deeper. Again, it was pointing us to the living word, Mashiach. Now, if we were to take the gematria, and when we talk about gematria in this context, or in all contexts, we're not talking about what the Chaldeans used to do with gematria and attempt to tell the future, because that's what they were known for. That's what they would say. Go get the Chaldeans. They'll go and figure out the numbers and tell us the future and all this kind of stuff. We even see that in Daniel. That's what they were known for, try to tell the future. That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about the letters. Every letter in Hebrew has a number associated with it. But gematria is refuge is 179, but if you double it up, it's 358, which is Mashiach. The sign was literally pointing to the Messiah, who brings deliverance, who brings freedom. To become one with him, to integrate with him, saturate him in every element of our lives to keep us from sinning and being subject to the accuser or avenger of blood. We have to flee to Messiah. I didn't sleep at all last night, didn't understand why, so I couldn't do anything but pray. An alarm clock went off at 5 o'clock in the morning. I was already up. My sweetheart says, "Sonny, why don't you sleep? Because you haven't slept." I said, "I can't sleep. I'm about to go ahead and go to the gym like I was going to do anyway." But when I got to the gym, and as I'm working on a heavy bag, to get my 12, 15 rounds in, I began to pray. And I began to speak the will of God over my life. And I'm talking about outwardly praying. Outwardly praying as I'm throwing my combinations on the back. Because I want God to be in every point and part of my life. And if he's not there, I ain't got no business being there. I ain't got no business thinking. I don't have no business doing it because he's not there. But the concluding chapter of the book of Numbers, turn me to Numbers 33 and 1 through 8, we're going to read. Chapter 36 addresses the concerns of the tribes regarding the inheritance of the land of the daughters who married outside of their tribe. Now, this was a direct result of the ruling related to the daughters of I'm saying it in Zelophehad. I want to say it in Hebrew, Zelophehad. But the ruling is the inheritance of the children of Israel is not change. It does not change hands among the tribes. We got to understand something here. And I don't want to jump ahead, but to reach our destination, there's got to be a journey. Everybody wants the destination. Everybody wants the destiny. Everybody wants their destiny, but they don't want to go through the journey. Don't want to do it. Act like we want to do it. Say we want to do it. And all you're doing is like a hamster. Just a hamster in a reel. Just say, man sitting in a rocking chair, moving and ain't going nowhere. Numbers 33, 1 through 8. These are the stages in the journey of the people of Israel as they left the land of Egypt, divided into groups under the leadership of Moshe and Aaron. Moshe recorded each of the stages of the journey by order of Yahweh. Here are the starting points of each stage. They began the journey from Ramses in the first month. On the 15th day of the first month, the morning after Pesach, the people of Israel left proudly in view of all Egyptians. While the Egyptians were burying those among them who Yahweh had killed, all the firstborn. Let me read that again. While the Egyptians, see, this is the pattern of God that's going to happen here and everywhere where the children of Israel are sown among the Gentile nations. God judges the nation. He judges the nation, and he judges the nations and people with evil. Never forget that. That is the Bible. I don't care what Christianity tells you. He judges the nations, and then we leave with great wealth. We also see that prophesied in the prophets, including Genesis chapter 15. When the Lord is literally saying this to Abraham. Know this for surely that your children will be in the land that they do not know for 400 years. And I'm going to judge that land, and they're going to leave with great wealth. Because he has to judge the land. America and all these nations were just brought up just so God can judge Israel. Now he has to judge these lands. But as they were burying those among them, now keep in mind now, the Lord took care of the Israelites in the 3 days of darkness that didn't want to go. Why? Because he's a just God. He's a just God. But the people of Israel, that as Yahweh had killed all the firstborn, Yahweh had also executed judgment on their gods. My goodness. See, a lot of folks ain't going to make it because you can't get past the first one. When I say the first one, thou shalt have no other God before me. We bring these gods right in front of his face, Panaim, and we think it's okay. He says, don't use my name in vain, which is his character. And we claim that we put on the name of Yeshua, and we claim that we put on the name of Yahweh, and all you've done is judge yourself to hell because you are profaning his character in your behavior. That's why you just got to check the list. They ain't gonna make it. They ain't gonna make it. They ain't gonna make it. Because that's what he said, not what I said. See, I make sure that I don't do anything that profanes his name among the Gentiles that we have done. And they say, he's supposed to have the character of God. The Bible goes on to say in the book of Hebrews that we open Yeshua wounds afresh. We put him back on the cross when we go out here and sin and act the fool. But we claim we love him. Nothing left. We trampled on the spirit of grace. We're in the very last minutes of time. And people going on like ain't nothing going on. Verse 5, the people of Israel moved from Ramses and encamped at Sukkot. They moved from Sukkot and camped at Edom by the edge of the desert. Verse 7, they moved from Edom and turned back to Pi Hikarot in front of Baal Zephon, the god of the north, really, it translates to encamp before Migdal. They moved from Panay Hikarot, passed through the sea of the desert, continued 3 days' journey into the Edom desert, and camped at Marah. Now, if you started sitting down writing all the places you were going, and all the destinations you stop in today's world, and all the little minor point stuff, people think you're crazy. But there is something going on in the scheme of things here, because there are places. And I think my wife, one of the many things she's taught me, and it's really changed my way of thinking to be more other-centered and not just be in my head focusing on what's going on in Kenny Lumpkin's head, when she tells me to be present. To be present. To be present. I had an old man telling me in the gym today, because he was in there working out when I got in there and it looked like he was upset. And I met the guy, know the guy in. I don't have much to say because I'm trying to get my workout in and get on to work. But upset because he wasn't in his children's lives. He wasn't present because how things in life turn out. But there are places and moments of significance in our lives. Sometimes you want to try to remember something that happened and you can't seem to remember it. It's lost in memory. And some of them you just want to forget. Can I tell you that? But no matter what, every place we have been in this life is part of our journey and our destination. Now, you got to decide what your destination is going to be. Because this is your journey. I've learned along the way. God going to let you do what you want to do. Now, whatever the consequences are going to be, now you ain't got nothing to say about it. But there's consequences either way. This chapter supplies us with the stage of the journey of the Israelites from Egypt to the plains of Moab. And we're going to be going into the Moab covenant, verse 28, Deuteronomy 28, 29, and 30. When we get there next, whenever we get there, we're going to Deuteronomy. But it was written to serve as a memorial, not only for the historical interest, but of deep religious significance. Every journey and every stopping place had its suggestion for the instruction, the admonition, or the encouragement of Israel. It's been quoted as says, it may be likened unto a king who had taken his ailing son to a distant place to be cured. On the return journey, the king would lovingly recount to the lad all the experiences they went through at each of their stopping places. At this spot, we slept. At that spot, we had a cool resting place from the heat. At the other spot, you were overcome with your pains in your head. Israel is God's child upon whom he bestows compassion, even as a father bestows compassion on his son, end quote. The king had mercy on his son and personally took him into the place where he could be cured. And every stop along the way had a meaning. It was a place of significance and a place of purpose as God was leading them on their journey. Now, we say that we're on our journey. We say that we're doing the work and we're doing the healing with the King. We have our life before salvation, but all the bumps and the bruises of a two-time loser. All the injuries that life has brought us physically, mentally, and spiritually. And then we have our life after salvation. Now, we might be healed. I say might be. But we're still trying to stay and get on that road to recovery. We're still trying to learn and walk in the newness of life of someone that says that they've been born again. But I've known one thing, as you're walking on this road, this journey, in the newness of life, you still can see the shadow of who you used to be. We got to understand that there's a process. There is a process. But you have to be moving. You have to be moving. I've told you guys, and I'll say it again. You run into a so-called believer that you ain't seen in a while, and you have a theological conversation, you should be able in that conversation to see where you are and where they are, where they're not, or where they should be or where you should be. And sometimes it could be embarrassing because if you ain't really doing nothing and they're picking your brain to see exactly that you ain't been doing nothing. But each stop on this road has its own purpose. When God is moving you, every stop he's moving you to. Now, I keep saying him, not what you want to do. When he moves you and stops you, he says, okay, now, there's some work need to be done right here. It's some work that needs to be done right here. Now, you can decide if you want to do the work or not. Like you can decide whatever you want to believe. That's your choice. But again, whatever the consequences are, don't complain. If you don't want to do the work. And I say that because God knows I put in some work. I put in some work and I'm still putting in work. Because I want folks to know I know what I'm talking about because I have been there, done it, and still doing it to clean up my mess of what I did long, which is what has hurt me and what I did to myself over the years and all the detritus that I left behind. While we're on this road, this journey that we're supposed to be recovering and trying to get to our ultimate destination, I found out that you have other people now in your life. It's not just you no more. You have other relationships in your life. It involves the lives of others at every point of the journey, because our faith is supposed to be living. You're supposed to be walking this thing out in your faith and life. This has to be a way of life, not a religious experience. This is supposed to be, as the Father gave us our spirituality as Israelites in Africa, that's what He gave us. African spirituality, not European religion. See, let me tell you something here. See, Christianity and religion need spirituality, but spirituality don't need Christianity and religion. It has to be a way of life. This is a faith journey. It's a literal thing. It's a literal thing. And it's also figure of speech. But this is a faith journey. It's a journey that we find. We started with Abram, our father, biological or spiritual, doesn't matter. Through Isaac and Yitzhak and Yaakov, Jacob, to Moses, and down to the 12 tribes, to Moses and the children of Israel, to Joshua, David, to the prophets, until the arrival of the Messiah and his departure. As we see, it continues on this faith journey. As I've said, and we're going to be talking about next week, and Israelites are talking about it all over the world. This is a 3,500-year-old story, and if not, maybe longer, because there are some years missing in the Torah. We know this for a fact. This journey and this story is continuing right to the Olam Hazah, this very present age. When we look at, let's say, Hebrews chapter 11, or all the Hebrews of the heroes of the biblical faith, we find that they were not the same at the end of their lives as they were in the beginning of their life. They were not the same. They had to change through that journey. Now, they all had moments. They backslid, some of them, but they continue forward through teshuvah, or repentance. It's been quoted as saying our Hebraic faith as a journey. It begins with the journey of Abraham and Sarah. We always want to leave out our spiritual mother, but she was just as important as Abraham. Leaving behind their land, their birthplace, their father's house, and traveling to an unknown destination, a land I will show you. The Hebrew Israelite people is defined by another journey in a different age, the journey of Moses and the Israelites from Egypt across the desert to the promised land. The journey becomes a litany in the Parsha of Massei, which we're reading today. They only rarely, if ever, settle down. And that's the problem. Too many people get settled. Too many people get settled. Get comfortable. God wakes you up spiritually, and you lull yourself back to sleep. Devil ain't got to do nothing half the time, because you just want to get comfortable. They left X and they camped in Y. They left Y and they camped in Z. To be a Hebrew is to move. That's what Ever and the word Evrit, where we get the Hebrew word, the word Hebrew from Evrit, Ever, means to what? Cross over. You got to be moving. To be a Hebrew is to move, to travel, and only rarely, if ever, settle down. Moses warns the people of the danger of settling down and taking the status quo for granted, even in Israel itself. He says, when you have children and grandchildren, Deuteronomy chapter 4, go read it for yourself. When you have children and grandchildren and have been established in the land for a long time, you might become decadent. Hence the rules that Israel must always remember its past, never forget its years in slavery of Egypt, never forget on Sukkot that our ancestors once lived in temporary dwellings, never forget that it does not own the land. It belongs to Yahweh. And we are merely there as God's Garim Vitoshavim, strangers and sojourners. That's in Leviticus chapter 25. And we get comfortable. Because you got your little bills paid, you got a little roof over your head, you got your little car, you don't have nothing. You don't have a doggone thing. It belongs to God. Therefore, you should have your mind on that, continually moving forward, not getting comfortable and getting settled. If I can't get everything that God has promised me, and I mean spiritual, I'm one of those folks that believe all these lies, these Christian lies and church lies, folks, and told. I'm talking about spiritually. If I can't get what he said, I wouldn't serve him. So if he's either a liar or I'm doing something wrong. It's the same in our faith in Messiah Yeshua. And we find when we read the apostles, or in particular Apostle Peter, he said, beloved ones, I appeal to you as sojourners, as pilgrims. They understood this literally and figuratively. It went to their mind